I'd like to share some information with you today in regards to emotional abuse. This information is coming from verywellmind.com, written by Sherry Gordon and reviewed by Amy Morin. So, what is emotional abuse? Emotional abuse is a way to control another person by using emotions to criticize, embarrass, shame, blame, manipulate the other individual. What's more, mental or emotional abuse? While most common in dating, married couples can occur in any relationships, which can include family members, co-workers, friends. Emotional abuse is one of the hardest things to recognize at times. It can be very subtle, overt, and manipulative. Either way, it chips away at the person's self-esteem, and they begin to doubt their own perception of reality. The underlying goal of emotional abuse is to control the victim by discrediting, silencing, and isolating them. So, how do you know? So, when examining your relationship, remember that emotional abuse is often subtle. As a result, it can be hard to detect at times. If you're having trouble discerning whether or not your relationship is emotionally abusive, stop and think about the interactions with your family member, friend, partner, and how those interactions make you feel. So if you feel wounded, frustrated, confused, depressed, misunderstood, worthless, anxious at any time you interact, chances are higher that your relationship is emotionally abusive and or unhealthy. So some more examples are, having unrealistic expectations. Emotionally abusive people display unrealistic expectations. And what that kind of can look like is criticizing you for not completing a task according to their standards, demanding you spend all of your time with them, making unreasonable demands of you, demanding that you name exact dates and times. You're discussing things that are making you kind of feel upset. Also making unreasonable demands with expecting you to put everything aside to meet their needs. Also, there's invalidating you. So some examples of that can be requiring you to explain how you feel over and over, refusing to accept your feelings by trying to define you and define how you should feel, undermining, dismissing, or distorting your perception or your reality, suggesting that your perception is wrong and that you cannot be trusted to say things like, like you're blowing things out of proportion, you're exaggerating, you're overreacting, accusing you of being selfish, needy, or materialistic. Also, creating chaos. Some examples of this can be having drastic mood changes or sudden emotional outbursts, starting arguments for sake of argument, behaving so erratically and or unpredictably that you feel like you're walking on eggshells. There's also emotional blackmailing that can look like using your fears, values, compassions, or other hot buttons to control you in situations, manipulating and controlling you by making you feel guilty, denying that an event took place or lying about it, humiliating you in public or in private, and punishing you by withholding affection or giving you the silent treatment. So how also an example of this can be of acting superior. Some examples of that can be telling you that your opinions, ideas, values, thoughts are stupid, irrational, also treating you like you're inferior, blaming you for mistakes, doubting everything that you say, acting like everything's okay, acting like they're always right, knowing what's best and that they are smarter. Another example can also be controlling and isolating you, kind of accusing you of cheating or being jealous of outside relationships, controlling who you see and spending time with, including friends and family, monitoring you digitally, including text messages, social media, and email, using jealous and envy as a sign of love and keeping you from being with others, accusing you of and demanding to know where you are at all times and taking or hiding your car keys, and those can continue. Another example can be um, types of emotional abuse. This is kind of a different number of forms of emotional abuse, which can be accusations of cheating or other signs of jealousy or possessiveness, consistent checking on other attempts to control the other person's behavior, trivializing the other person's concerns, gaslighting, criticism, constantly arguing or opposing, shaming or blaming, silent treatment, name calling, and verbal abuse, isolating the individual from their family and friends, um, shaming, blaming, um, withholding attention or affection. It's important to remember that these types of abuse may not be apparent at the outset or the onset of the relationship. The behaviors may begin to slowly kind of creep up, and you may not notice them at first. So, the impact of emotional abuse. So, when an individual is kind of experiencing emotional abuse severe, and it's ongoing, consistent, the victim might lose their entire sense of self, sometimes without a single mark or bruise, right? Instead, those wounds are kind of invisible to others, hidden in self doubt, worthlessness, and self loathing. Are some of the things a victim can feel. Emotional abuse can even impact friendships because emotional abuse individuals um, often worry about how people truly see them, and if they truly like them. So here are some tips. The first step in dealing with emotional abusive relationship is to recognize the abuse, identify that. If you're able to identify any aspect of the emotional abuse in your relationship, it is important to acknowledge that first and foremost. Being honest about what you're experiencing, um, and that there are some strategies in reclaiming yourself, your life back. Make yourself a priority. Self-care is very important. When it comes to your mental and physical, emotional health, you need to take a priority. Stop kind of, and it's hard, it takes practice, and that's why a mental health provider can assist you through that process. Because it'll assist you in worrying less about pleasing the other person that is causing you harm emotionally. Also, establishing boundaries. Firmly tell what you were feeling, you're thinking, effectively communicating. Um, so I would definitely say stop blaming yourself is something to be mindful of. Um, if you've been in an emotional abusive relationship for any amount of time, you may believe that somewhere you did something wrong and take on the responsibility and blame. You are not to blame. Um, Also, just being mindful that you do not have control over another individual. Realizing that you cannot fix them. Remind yourself that you cannot control the actions again, and that you are not to blame for their choices. The only thing that you can do is control how you are responding to those experiences, whether you seek some mental health support, as well as creating a safety plan, as well as contacting 911 if there is any need of danger. Also, possibly building a support network. That's important. Talking to a trusted friend, family member, even a counselor, therapist, about what you're experiencing. Take time away from the abusive person as much as possible and spend time with people who love and support you. also work on an exit plan. It's kind of what I was speaking to in a safety plan. You want to be mindful that the abuse often escalates when the person being abused makes a decision to leave. Be sure that you have a safety plan in place should the abusive person and those experiences get worse. Healing from emotional abuse takes time. Take care of yourself, reaching out to your supported loved ones, taking time to talk with a therapist. So, there can also be some potential complications, right? So sometimes attempts to deal or to reduce emotional abuse can backfire and actually kind of revert back to the behaviors. So some tactics that are not effective in dealing with abuse can include arguing with the person, the abuser, trying to understand or make excuses for them, and attempting to appease the abuser. I would definitely strongly suggest, again, seeking assistance from a therapist, contacting 911, protecting your safety comes number one. Definitely speaking to your support network, and also there are a multitude of um, national safety hotlines and things of that nature that can be of assistance for you. I hope that this information is of assistance for you today, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of your day.